Okay, back again, and hopefully we can move through this without a whole lot of trouble. What I'm noticing here on the page is that now we're down to somewhere where I've got a dot, so I know that there's a class going on of some sort, and this class is named Caption. Something that I haven't explicitly said before is that it makes a lot of sense to name classes and IDs in your CSS what they would be named if you were looking for them somewhere. So if I want to make a bunch of caption styles, I could call them Bob or Tom or Greg, and the internet would not care as long as I matched that to what was in the HTML. But it might be confusing for yourself coming back to your project after a year when something breaks and you're trying to remember which different spots there were. So I like descriptive names for classes and IDs. Let's pop over to the finished.html page and we'll see what's going on with the caption here. So I can see scrolling down, here's a place where there could be a caption because I see an image and below that there's often a caption, and look, sure enough, there's a paragraph with a class of caption and some descriptive text about what's going on here. If you look at the page, the finished version of the page over in the browser, I can see that there's a caption underneath the picture which gives me some descriptive information, and it's a little bit different than the paragraph text is. So there's only one caption on this page, so why might it be in a class? Why would I not use an ID since I can only use an ID once? Well, the reason for that is that I'm just mocking this up maybe for a blog spot or something like that, where I might write about something like Star Wars. And I might assume that I will have multiple pictures that wind up on the page at some point, and therefore I'm going to need some captions on the page at some point. So by doing this, what I can do is I can make a class called caption. I can write my style rules for the caption over here, and then when I do all that stuff, then hey presto, I will not have to write this again. I can put as many captions into the HTML page as I want, and they'll all be styled the same. This is especially useful because we're assuming that eventually these pages will be dynamic, and users might add captions to them through a CMS or something, so we don't have to make those things differently each time. I can just I can tell my program to have a class of caption with every one of these things, and then they're all set the same way. So running through this, I've changed the text color to black. Keep in mind that our default paragraph text color is this kind of light gray, or dark gray, I guess. Font family now is, again, different from what the basic paragraph font family is. I've changed it back to Georgia, Times New Roman, and Serif. I've given the font style command here, which is different than the font weight again. The font style here I'm going to say is italic. I'm changing the font size a little bit. This is the first time we've actually done this here, and I'm changing the font size to be a little bit smaller than what my default font size was. So I'm going to give it a font size of 0.8 ems. An em is a unit of measurement we'll talk about here in a bit, but it's a relative unit of measurement, and so I'm making it just a little bit smaller than my default font size is. I'm getting rid of the margin on the top. When I do that, what it does is it scoots the caption right up to the top here. If we inspect this element here, what we can see is that there is just a titch of margin below it. It's that yellow thing there, but there's no margin set up on the top of it. So it moves up a little bit closer to the image itself. The image, of course, and the link that's there both have just a teensy bit of margin on the bottom of them, so that's a way to get that caption up so I can tell visually that this goes with this and not with this necessarily. So that just a little bit of margin there does that for me. And then finally, the text alignment is to the right here. Most of the time, 98% of all the text that you're going to have on your pages, body text, headline text, stuff like that, is going to be aligned to the left. There are some times when you'll want to align something to the center. You don't want to do this for very much text because it creates a ragged left, which is hard for reading. And sometimes too, if you have like a little single line caption or maybe a photo credit, you might want to align that to the right. Again, you don't want to do that for more than a line or two of text, but that's the alignment. Super straightforward. And then finally, let's take a look at what's going on with the footer here. In the finished.html page, we can see that we have an ID of footer, and it's really just this one paragraph. So it's all even just on one line. And all it is a little copyright notice that says that this is content copyrighted by me. And over in our styles, what we can see is that, again, all we've done is taken the color of the text, change it back to black. We've used Georgia, Times New Roman, and Serif. We've made the font size 0.8 ems. So at this point, you're kind of thinking, if you're like me, I could just use the same style for the caption that I did for the footer. The difference here is that I don't want to italicize this. I need a border on the top rather than a margin on the top, and I don't want it aligned right, which is why this is written differently. So the font size, again, 0.8 ems, and then the border on the top, 1 pixel solid black border on the top. And we can see that this is set off over here from the rest of the page. And then finally, the last thing that's going to happen is that I have an image tag here. And so keep in mind, this is going to apply to any image tag on the page. So we don't have a class with the dot. We don't have an ID with the pound sign in front of it. We have just a naked image tag here, just the img, and then the border is removed from this. What does that mean? In this case, the image, if we look at it over in the HTML page, the image is actually nested inside of a link. So in other words, if you were to click on that image, it would create a mail to link that would mail me and send me an email, and create an email to be sent to me. Same thing that you did for your first assignment. So here, by default, most of the Microsoft browsers up to Edge will make a thick blue link line around the outside of the image, which we don't want to have here. So this command, the image border none, gets rid of that border. You're not going to see it on Mac computers. It's not going to visibly change on my computer, but that's how we actually read this text. So now that we've read through these style sheets and hopefully gotten comfortable with how the syntax works, let's actually write a little bit of this. We're going to recapitulate all this over in the next couple of example videos.